Hi there, this is Dylis Guyan, and welcome to the Inspired Selling Podcast, the place where business owners, consultants, coaches, trainers, and professional experts discover how to attract, convert, and retain more of their ideal clients on a consistent basis, as always. And I've got another great guest for you today, and that's Janet Murray. So let me just tell you about the Janet Murray. Janet helps 6- and 7-figure coaches, consultants, and experts create engaging content that attracts high-ticket clients, which is what we all want, of course. And over the past 5 years, Janet has built a successful blog, podcast, email list, and large social media following. And when I say large, I mean large. I mean like larger than large. And she has also been featured in dozens of national newspapers and magazines and on radio and TV. And she's actually written a book to help you find out how to do that. She's spoken at high-profile events, both in the UK and abroad, and this has helped to build a 6-figure business with multiple streams of income. And I love this. Janet says she has learned that marketing isn't an activity that you do when you have a bit of spare time. It's how you make money, which is why you need to do it every single day. And I love that, Janet. And thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. So, Janet, tell us your backstory, share that with us, and tell us how you got to where you are today.
Well, I actually started life as a school teacher, but I decided after a few years I wanted to retrain. So I retrained as a journalist, and I worked for about 15 years as a freelance journalist. I was writing and editing for national newspapers and magazines. And the thing about journalism is it's not very well paid. You get paid by the word or sometimes by the article. And I was looking for ways to supplement my income. And people were approaching me as a journalist. I specialised in education, and they were approaching me with nice, juicy corporate gigs. So they were approaching me to do copywriting projects, they were approaching me to do training and consultancy, and the kind of money I was picking up was like way beyond anything I could earn as a journalist. And I thought at the time, I want a bit more of this. I want more of these nice, juicy, big corporate clients approaching me and asking me to work with them. So at the time, I thought, I knew nothing better, and I thought, I'll start a blog. I know what I'll do. I'll start a blog, and then they'll read about me, these big corporate clients, and then they will get in touch with me, and they'll book me to work with them. So I started this blog, and I had quite a good following on Twitter as a journalist at the time. So people seemed to like my blog, but then I thought, well, actually, I need to get more people to read this blog. So I started to learn about how to get traffic to your blog, and I started to learn all the different ways to get more people to your website and to read your content. And what I was really doing was content marketing. I now realise it was being called content marketing. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was creating valuable content. So it was things like how to write a press release, like how to get in touch with journalists, how to find journalists, how to pitch a journalist, all of the things that people were booking me to help them with. And I was basically thinking, if I can put this content online, then people will find me and I don't have to go out and kind of pitch. So I kind of fell into this whole thing accidentally.
As we do.
Started to learn about it, realised that I enjoyed doing it, and I started to build this following, and then I wrote a book, and I started to get booked to speak, and I built this whole kind of brand around helping people with press. But then I realised something, and I think this probably is still quite relevant to the story. I realised something. I realised that in this kind of world we live in at the moment, everybody seems to think that getting in the national press or getting on radio, TV will kind of explode your business. But as a journalist myself, in my experience, I knew it helps. It's great for your credibility and authority. But what really moves the needle for you in your business is your own content. And I knew that from my own situation, because I think I missed a bit out. I started a podcast as well. I started to build up a really good following for this podcast. And so I started to feel that press was maybe less relevant to people, and I needed to be talking more about content broadly. So I kind of pivoted and moved into helping people more broadly with content marketing, which is where I am today. That's a kind of very abridged version of the story.
Yeah.
And nowadays I help people to build online audiences. So generally the kind of people that I work with are coaches, consultants, experts, who are often, what they're looking to do is either attract their ideal clients online, or they're trying to do that and create some kind of passive income. So maybe launch online courses or memberships, that kind of thing. They're a bit tired of traveling around and being on the move all the time. And generally, how do you build your audience? Well, you build your audience through great content and being the best content creator in your space. So I teach people how to do it. I've got a membership community, which has got 350 members. I've actually got a couple of membership communities.
Right.
I've got, I do work with one-to-one clients as well. I do a little bit of consultancy and coaching. I've also got a book. I've got a podcast. I've got multiple ways that I generate income. But at the heart of it all is helping people to build online audiences, build their following through top-notch content, basically. Does that kind of give you
Yes, it does. That's perfect. And you could have actually slipped my name in there when you said, you help people who want to build something online, which is exactly what I have done, because I was tired of traveling. because I was traveling internationally and I was absolutely worn out. So I was working with corporates, with the sales teams and the sales leaders. And probably about 6 years ago, I thought I need to just pivot and start and think about content marketing, because I've now got an online program. So I still do in company, but I'm helping, as I mentioned at the beginning, the same audience as you, actually, helping them to get more corporate clients. And one of the things that I often hear is, well, if you're selling B2B, you don't really want to be involved in content marketing, which you and I know is not true. So first of all, could you explain to us why it's important that the SMEs consider content marketing, even though they want to go into bigger businesses? And when I say corporates, I just want to clarify that I don't necessarily mean big international corporates. I could be talking mid-sized corporates, small corporates, large SMEs, mid-sized SMEs, universities. It could be not-for-profit type of companies. So I'm using the word corporate in the round, really. So why is it important?
Okay, so the first thing that somebody will do when you get in touch and pitch to work with them and ask about working with them is they'll look you up, basically. They'll go onto your website, they'll look at your social media, and they'll look at your digital footprint. They'll look at what you're creating online. And what they'll look at is, obviously, they'll look at your website. Do you have the credibility? Do you have the authority? Have you really done the things that you say you do? And do you have that social proof? So I don't know about you, but my experience is that the coaches, consultants, experts, the world is full of them, and a lot of people who are vying for the same business and the same contracts. So if you've got the choice between going with somebody who, I don't know, say you're looking for somebody to come in and deliver some social media training or something like that. So you've got the choice between somebody who says they're a social media expert, but there's nothing on their website because they're so busy delivering, I guess, and somebody who has a whole suite full of blog posts or podcasts with really practical, good ideas on how to do that with, somebody maybe who's got a book, or somebody who's just consistently putting content out there that they're not just saying they're an expert, they're proving it through their content, and other people are engaging with their content, other people see them as an expert or an authority. So for me, it's about providing that social proof, that stamp of approval, and and that kind of trust. Because if you pay somebody, a big amount of money to come in and deliver some training or some coaching or consultancy, then you need that reassurance that that person is good. But the other part of it as well is, I don't know about you, but most of the coaching and consultancy work I've got has not been from completely cold leads. It's generally from relationships that I've built up over time. And when people get in touch with me to ask me to do coaching, training, consultancy, speaking, they've usually been following me and my content for a while. So that makes the sell part of it really easy, because they're already sold on you, because they've read your blog post, they've read your podcast, they've listened to podcast episodes, or they've followed you on social media. So they already know that you know your stuff. It's a matter of the formality. So So for me, it's about kind of making the whole selling process easier. It's about attracting people towards you rather than that you're having to kind of go out there and do the pitching, although, you know, I still do that, and I think it's important that you can do it. You know, it's about drawing people towards you so that you're always top of mind. So when they need somebody to do this or that or whatever it is that you do, you are the first person they think of. Or when they ask their friend, do you know somebody who could come and deliver some training on sales? Yeah, you need to hire Dylis because she's great. I know it because I follow her and I follow her content. Does that kind of make sense?
Yes, absolutely. And I've got a great example of exactly that. I got a email actually just out of the blue from this guy who wanted to talk to me about coming into his company to do some sales consultancy and coaching. And we made the appointment. I went along to see him and I said, how did you find me? He said, it was from someone. I do work at Side Business School, so I do a sales program there for the MBA students. And it was one of those students that he'd been talking to that had mentioned my name. He said, and then I had a look at, you know, about you because this person had recommended. He said, I went on your website and then I had to look at other things you were doing. He said, and you're all over the place. And that was really, because he didn't know me, the recommendation was good, but the credibility was in other companies that I've worked for and my footprint. I always talk about exposing yourself, metaphorically speaking.
Yeah. But, I mean, I've got quite a similar example. So a year or so back, I was invited to go to Loughborough University to do some work with, it was like a business incubator. And this inquiry pretty much came out of the blue. I didn't think I knew the person who booked me, but when I got there to deliver the training, it turned out that she'd read a blog post of mine quite a few years ago, which was something to do with press release writing or something like that, and it was quite an old blog post. And she just remembered me, and when she'd been given some budget to spend on getting somebody to come and help these startups, and I think it was with kind of content including press, she thought of me. And it was 2 years or so after I think she'd actually read the post, but she just remembered it, you know. Thankfully, she remembered my name. She Googled me to find the post. And then there I was sat, you know, and I remember saying to the group at the time, this is proof of why this stuff is important, because I'm here because of some content that I created a few years ago. And so, you know, it can be a long game, but you're so right. It's you know, you leave a footprint all over the internet, basically.
Yes, yeah. And this has certainly helped you in your business, hasn't it? In terms of you having this huge email list and the social media following. You know, I said in the introduction, this is a huge following that you've got, and it absolutely is. And when you've got that, there are so many benefits to it, and we'll talk about that in a second. But first of all, let's talk about the mistakes that you see. So people who think, right, I'm going to engage in content marketing, what do you see that they're doing wrong that they could improve on?
Okay, well, where can I start? Okay, so first of all, I think being a bit arrogant about it and thinking you don't have to do it. What I always say to my clients is, if you are absolutely booked solid for years and years, then okay, maybe you don't need to do any of this. But if there's even a hint of a worry in your mind that a few months down the line you might have a dry spell, or you might have a little bit of a gap in your calendar, then this is investing for your future. So this is investing to make sure that you have a constant flow of leads and sales coming in years and years down the line. So first of all, the biggest mistake is thinking that it doesn't matter and it's fine, and you know that it's okay, I'm doing okay now. The second thing is, it's not about you. So, for example, when I go onto LinkedIn, which is a platform that lots of coaches, consultants, and experts use, I just see lots of people broadcasting, and I see lots of people broadcasting into an empty room. So, hey, have a look at my event that I'm running next month, or I've been working with these people today, or this is an interesting article I've read, and it's like nothing. Like they are getting nothing back. But they keep doing the same thing over and over again, keep posting, like just announcing stuff that nobody is listening to. I think that damages you on a number of levels. So first of all, I mean, kind of what's the point? I mean, some people even hire VAs to do this for them. Some people hire VAs and waste money to post stuff that nobody's interested in. Why would you do that in the first place? But secondly, when people check you out, so when somebody checks me out on LinkedIn, what they go and see is a really lively account. So they'll see that every conversation I have, I get comments, replies, interaction. They see that I'm posting there regularly, and they see people having conversations with me, which I think is a really good thing, because people see that, you know, I'm a kind of person that people want to have conversations with. I've got something interesting to say, whatever. But if you're just broadcasting and, you know, nobody ever talks, nothing you ever say is remotely interesting enough for anybody to ever even go, thanks for that, Dylis. There's something wrong, you know? So the way I look at it, your content is not about you, it's about your ideal customer or clients. So what would they be interested in hearing about? Like, what problems are they having? How can you solve their problems for them? And for me, it's more about starting conversations. So one of the challenges you can have, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, Dylis, but if you have a blog or a podcast, like you might have a really useful episode. Like we did an episode together, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
To big businesses, and it was a really great episode. I just posted out, listen to this great podcast episode with me and Dylis Guyan. I'd probably get, you know, hardly anybody interacting with it. So I have to think really carefully about, how can I make this about people? How can I turn this into a conversation? So instead of just posting that out, like, you know, do you work with corporates? Like, what are your tips for working with? I think you remember that kind of thing that I did to get people in a conversation about it, and then share the link to the podcast. So I think it's about a change in mindset, and it's thinking about, how can I start interesting conversations on LinkedIn. The other thing as well, I mean, we can talk more about strategy and what kind of things work and what don't, if that's what doesn't, I should say, if that's helpful. The other thing is people give up too soon, and they don't take account of the social media algorithm. So the way it works on social media is that the more comments and interaction you get, the more people your content will be shown to. So what does that mean when you're first starting to up your game? It means you're probably going to have to go and get a few friends, family, anyone you can get, business friends, and say, please post on this for me, please get involved, just to nudge the algorithm and get things to move along a little bit. So they're the sort of key mistakes I see people making. They're the sort of big four. Would it be helpful for me to talk about, like, what kind of content?
Yes, please, because some people might be sitting thinking, okay, they're talking about content marketing. What exactly is it? And I know you alluded to it in your backstory, but maybe some clarity around that would be great. Yeah,
so content marketing is essentially any content that you create which is designed to be of service or help your ideal customer or client. So you're giving value, you're not trying to sell anything, you're just being a really helpful source of information. And what I suggest my clients do, particularly if they want to make sales from it, is they create 3 types of content. So the first is what I call awareness content. So this is when you could sit and make a list of all the problems that you solve for your clients. So in your case, for example, Dylis, you usually solve the problem that people might have a team of salespeople, but they're not selling anything, or they might have maybe they've got a really high turnover because they're hemorrhaging sales staff. Whatever your ideal clients, what their problems are, then you create content around that solves their problems. So it could be in the form of blog posts, podcasts, YouTube, or it can just simply be useful social media posts. Some people never get started because they think they have to have a blog or a podcast or anything. But start on social media, and then you can work up from there. So just for a couple of examples of things that I've done that have worked really well in my business. So my clients struggle with getting engagement on social media, and they struggle with what to post. So for example, I created a little video. They struggle with video, for example. Struggle with, like, I don't know what to create videos about. I need all this fancy kit. So I created a little 2-minute video about how to light your videos without any fancy equipment. And all I did was said, if you stand in front of an open window, then I'm turning to my window.
Yes, I'm facing mine.
Then you will look a lot better. And if you turn away from it, you will look worse. And this tip that I recorded, you would think I'd shared some kind of like amazing, thing. People are like, oh my God, thank you so much for that. I didn't realise that. I thought I needed a fancy camera. Things like I've created content, how to add captions on videos, like really easily. And you've probably seen that kind of content I create.
Yes, I have.
So these are things that I do for free. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Nobody pays me to do this, but I solve my potential customers' problems and give them a quick win if I can, you know, take them from A to B. So, for example, when I was helping people with getting press coverage, I had lots of blog posts or pieces of content on how to write a press release, just breaking it down step by step, how to pitch a journalist, how to find a journalist's contact details. If you give people that information, they learn to know, like, and trust you. And then when they do have a need, you'll be the first person that they call. Now, there is an issue around giving away too much of the content, which maybe, I don't know if you want to tackle it now.
Well, I was just going to say, I was going to ask you that question, because I know people have said to me, well, I don't want to give away everything, but not everybody sees everything for a start.
Yeah, and also,
but I don't know what your take on it is, Janet.
I believe give it all away for free. So give your best content away for free, because, you know, I can put out a press release on, I could put out a blog post on how to write a press release. That's the kind of thing I used to do. Or I could put out a blog post on how to create really engaging social media posts. But what people pay me for is the personalization and the application to them. So I can give you all the stuff, but you might try it and you'll be like, well, it kind of worked, but what I'd really love to do is to jump on a call with Janet and get her to tell me why some of it didn't work, and to personalise it to me as well. Because you know what it's like when somebody shares a piece of content, you'll always be like, yeah, but what about, how does that work for me? Or my or whatever. So people will pay for the personalisation. They'll pay for the convenience. So yes, they might read my blog post on how to do whatever it might be, but actually that's not the same as inviting me in and getting me to train the team on it. It's not, you know, it's not the same as buying my course or joining a membership. So actually, if you're too scared, it's almost like a bit of a, not a woo-woo law of attraction thing, but if you're too scared to give your best content away, then I think that's what you get back from people. You know, if you're not brave enough to actually just go out there and give people really good value and show what you're made of, then you will struggle to attract clients. I never struggled to attract clients. I've always got a constant flow of people coming towards me, even though I give away so much for free. But the next thing is really about the buyer's journey. So once you've raised that awareness of the problems that you solve for people and how you help them, and you can also talk about your products and services while you're doing that. The next stage is what I call the consideration content stage. So this is when people are, you know, they're kind of interested in, I've seen Dylis around, I've seen her content, she seems to know her stuff, but I'm just not sure about her because I don't know how she works, whatever. This is when we call it the consideration stage. So this is when you're creating content that specifically answers those questions and those objections that people are raising. So say, for example, when I run a live event, I'll do a load of awareness raising content, but then my next stage will be I'll do blog posts or social media posts like 10 reasons to attend this event, 10 reasons not to attend it. I'll do things like what to do if you want to come to my event but you don't have the budget, which
so you're covering all of the objections.
What to do if you feel you don't have the time. You know, so basically in sales, you just take all the objections, you put the elephant in the room. I have this where people come to me and they say, I don't know whether to do your coaching program or your membership program. So I just put that out on the table, you know, not sure whether to sign up for this or this. Read this will help you decide. So you basically just take all of that. The other thing as well is sometimes people just need a little bit more information in order to make a decision. So for example, I sell a media diary, which is a desk diary. It's got key dates and awareness days for content planning. The key question I get asked about that all the time is what's it like inside, even if we have pictures. So I've just created a video of me showing the inside of it, showing the pictures, and that sells. It takes people over the line. You know, sometimes it doesn't take people over the line because they're like, oh, actually it's not for me, in which case that's a good thing, because I'd rather somebody buy it who really wants it than buy it and then try and send it back up. And so that's right. You know, so the equivalent, you know, lots of coaches and consultants tell me that they get asked all the time, you're like, well, what is coaching? How does coaching work? Like, sometimes, why are you so expensive? Like, you know, you can create a piece of content around that. This is why my rates are this, you know, and you can explain it. So it's very similar to sales in the sense that you're just taking people's objections and you're just addressing them and you're getting it out on the table. And this helps people, move over the line, or it may help them decide that you're not a good fit, in which case that's probably good for both parties.
Yeah.
So,
and if I could just say, in terms of the way you position all of this, really what you're doing is you are putting out content that's resonating with the thought process of your audience.
Yeah. So what you're doing is you're getting people involved in a conversation about your products or services. And so one post that I suggest people do all the time is we walk around as a business owner with all these questions going around in your head. You're like, should I do this or should I do that? Like, should I include this in my program, or should I include that, or should I include this in the price or exclude it in the price? Put that out as content on social media. Right. So for example, with my diary that I sell, we're just about to put it on sale for 2020, and we always start with 8 cover designs. So instead of keeping that to myself and my team, I turn it into a piece of content. Like,
I saw it. I put a comment on.
And then what happens is people say, where can I buy it? Where can I buy it?
Right,
and then the link, so you're getting people excited. I've got a live event coming up, and I was wondering about the program. I was wondering about whether I should list my sessions at my event in terms of platform, so platform specific, LinkedIn, Twitter, or whatever, or kind of generic strategy. So again, it was in my head. I genuinely was thinking about it, and I put it out there. Like, you and I attended Expert Empires together, and I remember one of the things that I noticed when I went there was no lunch, and when I run events, we always have lunch, and sometimes I think, obviously it adds quite a bit of expense to it. Do people really want it? Do they want to actually go out and have, so those things that are going on in your head, so I could turn that into a post, like asking, when you go to a live event, do you like your lunch to be included in the ticket? So getting people to talk about what it is that you're doing without actually, if you're putting together a coaching program or some kind of consultancy package, share it, ask people to give you feedback, and while they're doing so, they'll be like, oh, I didn't realise you did that, Dylis.
Yes.
Any chance we could have a call about it? It's amazing. So that's the awareness and consideration phase. Most people are quite good at the awareness content. People tend to be less good at doing the consideration stuff, dealing with the questions, because sometimes it means getting a bit vulnerable, and and writing posts about why you're more expensive than your competitors, that kind of thing. You can feel a bit uncomfortable, but it's quite a good thing to do. And then the last type of content is purchase content. So this is literally when you are saying, this is my new coaching and consulting package, here's the link to sign up for it, or this is my new training program, or this is my event, or whatever it might be. And I think you should do a much smaller amount of that kind of content, because people just become immune to it. They get desensitized to it if every post you do. But if you've taken people through that journey, through the awareness, consideration and purchase, you don't have to do much of it, because people are saying, oh, where can I buy? Can I get the link? And they're DMing you. So that's it's quite a different approach to sort of pitching. It's almost like drawing people towards you. Does that kind of make sense?
Yes, it absolutely does. And the other thing that's striking me, which I talk about a lot, is this is strategic as opposed to just being random tactics. You've really got a strategy in terms of what's coming next, and so you can talk about that and create the awareness. Then what did you call it? The consideration. So you're looking at handling the objections. And then you can position what it is you're going to do.
And I think a lot of it's about slowing it down as well, and just remembering that most people need 7 or 8 touch points before they need to hear about your product or service, or you, or whatever. So they need to read the blog, see the email, see the social media post, and all of that will just kind of pile up until it sort of topples, and they're like, right, no, Dylis is definitely the right person.
The person, And I've sort of had this work the other way on me just this week, because I was on someone else's group doing a live, and we were talking about different things and how people could position themselves with corporates. And there was a lady who did makeup and things, and she said, I'm not sure that would fit into corporate. And I said it's not going to be the easiest, but there is an opportunity, because health and well-being is a big thing in corporates at the moment. and people feeling good and having confidence, and the way they dress and the way they look, and so on, particularly for, not so much for the men, not in my experience anyway, but for the ladies, they're more conscious of how they look as they're getting older. Anyway, to cut a very long story short, she then connected with this particular lady, connected with me on LinkedIn. She's been sharing and commenting on my posts, so she's got herself onto my radar. And then she sent me an email today with saying, because I was talking about these various touch points and not to give up too soon, and she said, I thought you might be interested to see these before and after photographs of this particular face cream or whatever it is that she's doing. And it really piqued my interest, and I've written back to her and said, that looks really great, give me some more details. so it's worked the other way on me. Maybe, because I was saying, here I am, not in my winter years yet, but I'm in my late autumn years now, and I'm conscious that I'm getting the odd wrinkle. I'm a little bit blessed because my mother's got wonderful skin, and I think genetically, I'm not bragging here, but I think genetically that's sort of passed on to me, and my sister actually. But I was saying, and I've got this wrinkle here, and she obviously picked up on that, and said, but she has, it was all about me, not about her, even though in this email she was selling her creams and lotions, potions, whatever, but she did it in the form of photographs before and after, and and it just piqued my interest enough for me not to delete it, but to reply to it.
Well, I wanted to share something that kind of links to that I've been doing recently, which is almost a mixture of this content marketing, but also things that you teach as well. And I've given it a name. I almost don't want to share it because it just it works well. But you have to be creating regular content for it to work.
Right.
But so I will get people who contact me on LinkedIn and try to sell me things. And when I go back and have a look at their profile, often, so for example, these guys got in touch with me and they wanted to sell me some kind of video package or something, and they just went straight in, started to try and kind of get me to do something, and I had a look at their website and had a look at their content, and I thought, these guys are just starting out, they're just trying to find their way. So I sent them a message back and said, look, I'm really happy to help you with this survey, whatever it is they want. I said, but while you're on, I've got a few little bits of feedback for you. Would you be interested in hearing? And this is the key thing. Would you be interested?
Yes, yeah.
But would you be interested? Got a few little bits of feedback for you. One of them was a couple of typos that I picked up. And I kind of said, I don't want to be one of those annoying people that just kind of, picks up on typos or whatever, but it might be helpful. And then I just sent a couple of voice messages on LinkedIn and said, look, here's how I felt when you got in touch with me, and this was how, and here's a few tweaks that I would suggest as to how you might have me. And one of them was their content. They had no content. So if I'd gone onto their website and seen that they had a really fantastic blog post or podcast episode or something about video or something, I would have been more kind of, anyway, what happened was they went and had a look at my content.
Right.
And the next thing, they sent me a message back, and this has happened quite a few times now, and said, do you do any coaching? Because we're interested in finding a coach that can help us build our audience. And so this is what the content does, So these guys were trying to sell to me, and I went back to them and just said, I've got a few little tips for you. Would it be all right if I shared them? And being a helpful person, asking permission. And then the next thing, and they've chased me up several times about doing it, but that's all because I've got content. When they went and checked me out, they could see who I helped, how I did it, what I was sharing. And so I didn't have to work for that lead and that sort of thing. So it's a little technique that, that works quite well, but you can only do that if you have content. You can only kind of do that if you're secure that you're creating really good quality content.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And I love these examples of how things have worked for you. It adds another dimension to the interview, really, by giving those stories. It's great. So if you just give a high level, let's say, I don't know how many steps, but a high level, you've already given us some terrific insights there in terms of awareness posts, consideration posts, and purchase posts, which I think is really helpful. Is there anything else you would add in terms of people thinking, right, I need to really get started with putting some content marketing or doing some content marketing?
Well, when I first started teaching this, I used to go all in with everything. And because ultimately for me, your goal is to have an email list, because if you have an email list, you can send out emails and sell stuff to people, even if it's your security. So even if, like you were telling me that on Friday you took a day off to go and see a friend who was unwell, when you have an email list, if something happens in your life and you need to take some time out or whatever, you can carry on selling even if you're not actually able to do it. You can automate it. So that's your ultimate goal. But obviously, building an email list, there's a journey. You need to get people to your website. You need to create some kind of incentive to get them onto your email list. And it's a tough thing. But if you have an email list with thousands of people on it, it's a great asset to have. But when I first started teaching it, I used to kind of get people all guns, like on social media, like webs, doing some kind of podcast or blog or whatever. And what I realized actually is that can be just too overwhelming, and a lot of people give up because it all just feels like too much. And now what I suggest is you start by building your audience on social media. You see what content works, you test some things out, you see where you're getting good feedback, and you sell. You see how to sell on social media. Then you start to create something like you're doing, and I'm doing a podcast or a blog or a YouTube video regularly in order to attract people to your website and then get them onto your email list. And then the email list is the kind of, the more advanced side of things. So that's where I'd suggest you start if you literally are building this from scratch. Because I get a lot of people come to me and they say, Janet, I want to launch an online course or a membership because I'm fed up traveling around. The story that you told me.
Yeah.
First question I ask them, I say, how many people have you got on your email list? And they say, well, 40 or something like that. So, well, the average online conversion rate is 1 to 2%. So that means if you want to sell hundreds of people onto an online course, you're going to need a lot more people than you've got now. You need to build this audience. So start with social media and just get into a regular posting schedule and just focus on getting people to engage with you. So getting people to talk back to you. A few little tips on that. There's so much you can do in terms of the way that you post, is just try and turn everything into a conversation. Just like that example I gave you earlier, if you're launching a new product or service, don't just tell people about it. Find a way to get them to show them the new logo, or show them the cover. I do this all the time. I have these playbooks that I sell, strategy playbooks. Show them the covers, get them to vote on their favourite cover. Maybe show them some different titles, get them to tell you which you think is, and while you're doing that, they're getting interested and they're like, oh, maybe I might want to get involved in this. The other thing is never give more than one call to action on a social media post, because if you try and get people to do too many things, it's like a sales meeting. You try and get people, they just can't process it all. And just make it as easy as possible. So people are really busy. If you can get people to respond to you with something that just takes one, I call them 2 tap answers. If you're giving people a choice, like, do you prefer cover 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, or logo 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5? Then all they have to do is literally type the number and then hit return, and they're in the conversation with you. And then you can say to them, oh, that's interesting. Why did you choose number 1? And then you're in a conversation. So it's about what's the easiest way for you to get someone to reply to you and to get this conversation going. Another thing you can do as well, if you're a coach, consultant, or expert, we all have to have headshots taken from time to time. When you get headshots taken, pick out your best 5 or 6, put them on LinkedIn or wherever it is that you're on Twitter, wherever you are on social media, and get people to vote on their favourite. People love
it. I remember you putting something on about a dress.
Yes.
Which dress do you think I should wear for this event?
Yeah, I don't know if any of your listeners speakers
Yes.
Yeah. So I would imagine lots of them are speakers. So I was speaking at the Upreneur Summit in London. Now, if you're a speaker, you'll know that if you just post, hey, I'm speaking at this event, you'll just get like, yeah, okay, whatever. And I thought, but I really want people to know that I'm speaking in my industry. This is like a really big event. I want to let people know I'm speaking there so people can book me to speak elsewhere. And I thought, how can I do it? And I had a genuine problem. So I'd bought a pink dress and a blue dress to speak in, and I couldn't decide whether the pink or the blue dress. So I took a picture of myself in both dresses. I posted it on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, everywhere. It got like thousands and thousands of comments. Men as well. Everybody was in on it. Everybody remembers it. Other people used it in their talks, and other speakers have used it in their talks. So something so simple that you'd think, well, why is that relevant? I've started lots of conversations around speaking about, I was at an event. The other thing I haven't touched on, which it's okay to quickly touch on, is your personal experiences. So when I was speaking at the UPenna Summit, I was at the speakers' dinner and I was sat next to all these kind of cool people like Pat Flynn and John Lee Dumas, some big digital marketing heroes of mine. And a lady knelt down beside me and she said, "Are you one of the speakers' wives?" And it was an awful moment where I just kind of thought, being British, like, I want to say yes, because I don't want to embarrass them at the same time. I want to say no. And I shared that as a post on LinkedIn and said, this really shows how difficult it can be to be taken seriously as a female speaker. What do you think about this? Started a massive conversation, had hundreds and hundreds of comments on it. So those things that you think are probably not interesting, like you probably think that your new program or some new development in your industry, the worst thing you can do actually is share other people's articles. It's just like death for your social media, other people's content. Don't do it. If you are going to share somebody's article or piece of content, summarize it in your own words and ask a question about it. That would be my tip. What do you think? But the often the things that you think people are going to be less interested in. I ran the London Marathon earlier in the year. All of my content I shared about the marathon, and because if people haven't done it themselves or never would, they probably know someone who has, or they've got some. It's about being relatable and human, and I don't think enough people do that on social media. And even people who are potentially hiring you in corporates are people who,
of course,
have hobbies and families and like things, other than their job. So it's just a really great way to make that personal connection. And one last example, if it's all right to share, because something that people say to me a lot is, well, I don't know what any of this has got to do with my business, but I shared a video on LinkedIn recently. I shared it across all of my social media platforms of me playing the piano and singing. And the point of sharing it was to make this point that actually, just because we're on social media for work doesn't mean we always have to share things which are about business. And the guy, not only did I get loads of engagement and loads of conversation out of it, I like the song, I didn't know you did this, I play the piano too, all this kind of stuff. I got a guy who said to me, I think this was really misleading, because I thought you were a singing teacher or a piano teacher. And then I went and looked at your profile and saw that you were an expert in building audiences and content marketing. So, and I was like, well, you've just made your point there, haven't you? Because what I did made you go check my profile out, and now you know what I do.
Yes, yes, exactly.
You wouldn't know, and maybe it's not of interest to you, but now you remember me as that piano playing lady who does content marketing and audience building, and you may well refer me to somebody else. So actually, I think you've proved my point.
Yes, fantastic.
So hopefully that that's given you a few examples.
Yeah, it's been brilliant, Janet. I'm really appreciate that you've shared, and I know you do share, your philosophy anyways. Just give the best of everything that you've got, and I know that it's worked for you, and I know you're highly regarded in your industry. So if anyone would like to get in touch with you, how might they do that?
Best place is to head over to my website, janetmurray.co.uk. I'm also very active on LinkedIn, so just search me up there. Instagram, Jan Murray UK, and Twitter, Jan_Murray. And do just say hello. If you listen to this podcast episode, then do tag both me and Dylis in and let us know that you've heard this interview.
Fantastic. Janet, thanks again. And hopefully we'll speak again soon, because I think we could talk for quite a long time on this subject. So thank you.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So another great guest with some great insights there. And just to cover off a couple of the things, the highlights of this in terms of your content is your awareness content, your consideration content, and your purchase content. And Janet explained that in terms of being strategic. So you are giving away your best tips and insights for people. And then the consideration is about dealing with those objections and putting out some content, whether it be blogs, whether it be a video, whatever, and then your purchase content. So absolutely brilliant. Please leave me comments below and just let me know what the highlights have been for you, what resonated with you, what your biggest takeaways have been. And subscribe to my my podcast so that you never miss any of these great episodes. And also, please come and join me if you'd like to kind of get closer, metaphorically speaking, I always say, but come and join my Facebook group, Inspired Selling. So just go into Facebook and put in the search bar Inspired Selling and click to join. And I'd love to see you in there. So until the next time, have a great time selling. And remember, selling is about serving. It's about giving people the opportunity to benefit from your product or service, to put them in a better place than they were before they were involved with you and before they were using your product or service. So until the next time, bye for now.